Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex in episode 546. I'm Keith, call sign Great Dane 1.
Well, you didn't tell me we were all going to need call signs.
See how quick you are on your feet.
Not. I'm Sean.
Doesn't he mix that up one other time too?
Springer Spaniel 1.
That's right, Springer Spaniel. That was the other one.
Dalmatian 1.
I'm Glenn.
Yeah.
How are you guys doing?
Oh, you're not even going to try. You're just going to leave it out there and just trail off like that. I'm Glenn. Just leave it.
I did. I asked about the other one, and Keith gave it to me.
Well, now you have to say it.
What'd you guys do this week?
We watched Quantum Mania.
Oh,
Finally.
Oh, you finally got to see it.
Finally got to see it.
What'd you think?
It was pretty. Oddly enough, it reminded me a lot of Strange World, as far as, both being this very flowing, organic, colorful, landscape that they find themselves in. But honestly, other than that, I was really kind of underwhelmed by it. We kind of, I don't think it was necessarily a good Ant-Man vehicle, because for the most part, he really took a back seat to the events. It was more, Janet and the Van Dynes and everything that was going on with them. And he really didn't play a big role in the story. And then when you got to the climax at the end where he does play a bigger part, it just kind of felt like, I don't know, how spoilery do we want to get? I mean, I know you guys have seen it, but
we're a month and a half out.
Spoilers.
Spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning. I kind of feel like they should have killed him off. I love Paul Rudd. I love Ant-Man as a character. But the fight sequence and, the portal and all that jazz, I feel like they kind of robbed us of the weight of that moment where he could have sacrificed himself to stop Kang, and maybe that would have made Kang a little more fearsome, because we honestly, we had to go and look up the wiki page for Loki to kind of remember why Kang was supposed to be so bad, because I don't feel like they did a very good job of explaining it in the movie. And then when we were like, oh, he was the head of the TVA and this, that, and the other thing, I was like, okay. And then he really wasn't, but it kind of set up for what will come. But at the same time, this is the Kang that got exiled because of that. I don't know. And then I liked MODOK in a way. It was vastly different from the MODOK that Patton Oswalt brought to us in the goofy show.
Of course. And I think that was part of the reason why they canceled that show, so that people didn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
weren't expecting that.
And I knew that, I think they knew that the way they were getting ready to do it in this movie was going to be goofy enough that I don't think they wanted to muddy any more waters, because they already were going to be on the probably warpath of those people that were upset that it wasn't like the comics. So.
Right. And, honestly, it kind of worked for me, because MODOK being, I mean, when you look at it, it's like, well, he's a floating head in a chair, but he's also this kind of tech genius, but he's not really, because all he does is put his name on other people's work. Well, man, that is Darren, left, right, and center. That's all over him. So yeah, this kind of works for me. But at the same time, the visual of him having this kind of weird stretched face didn't work for me. And there wasn't quite enough explanation of why being crushed and thrown into the quantum realm did that to him. I don't know. It was just, it had ups and downs, and I think on the whole, it just didn't quite work for me. But maybe that's just general Marvel fatigue kicking in.
Yeah, there's no such thing. The
no, well, I assure you there is.
Listen to the Five Is Fangirls podcast that I guested on, and Chrissy puts it so eloquently why that's not a thing. But that being said, I kind of see your point of the Scotland death thing. I personally don't think it was necessary. I think I was a little, maybe slightly disappointed that they so easily got out of the quantum realm. I think what they needed to do is end up stranding them there, and I think that would have given it the emotional weight and impact that it needed at the end in order to make the stakes higher and worth it. I don't know that they needed to kill him. And I think that ultimately, I think the reason why they're keeping him around is because they've lost so many. They've lost Downey Jr., they've lost Chris Evans. Obviously they can pay him enough probably to bring in Evans back. But I think they've got a lot of the anchors missing now, and I think that they want to keep at least one of the fan favorites around for the next Avengers film. And so I think that's why they're keeping Scott around as kind of an anchor point.
But and
that's
very true. Had they stranded him, I think that would have also given it a little more weight. We don't necessarily have to kill him off.
Exactly. Had they stranded him, then they could have figured a way to get him back out for Avengers. I mean, they did that one other time, and maybe they felt that was, one and done, and it would have been too redundant. But I think they could have stranded him there.
Yeah, no, I didn't hate it. I just it wasn't wasn't among my.
It was better than Thor: Love and Thunder for certain.
This is true.
We watched Tetris. Have you guys seen that?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh.
No, not yet.
That is so much fun. It's really good. I don't know how much of it is. I mean, I think all of it is true. It's based on a true story. I think the majority of the concepts and ideas there, what happened, I think it's obviously been, indulged a little. They've taken poetic license for the drama and tension, but it's a fun movie, but it's also really intense and sort of, behind the Iron Curtain, espionage-ish, just Cold War dealings. And it's amazing how they were able to get the rights out of that, out of the country, and how much backroom stuff was happening in order to get those rights. It's a lot of fun. It's really well done. And I never can remember the kid, that's playing.
Taron Egerton.
Yeah, him. He is so good. I sure enjoy him in everything he does. And then I watched the cameo fest of the 6th episode of Mandalorian with Jack Black, Lizzo, and Doc Brown.
Yep.
Who's not in it enough. Anyway, Keith, did you watch or read anything?
I didn't, but we did make it out to see the Banksyland exhibit in Kansas City over the weekend.
Ooh, and how was that?
It was really cool. I don't know a whole lot about him. Of course, that's purposeful. And haven't seen a whole lot of his art, but what was there was really cool.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
Well, there was one other thing I did. I got a chance to check out the new Big Finish audio Rani Takes on the World Beyond Bannerman Road, which is the continuation, the spin-off continuation of the Sarah Jane Adventures. And it's also this week's Something New 2-minute review. All right, here we go. All right, life on Bannerman Road was always the adventure for Rani Chandra and her friends, a childhood of mystery and wonder, of meeting aliens, time travelers, lost princes, intergalactic robots, and so much more, all along with Sarah Jane Smith. Sarah Jane is gone, childhood ends, everyone grows up, eventually, but the story doesn't stop there. When Rani and Clyde are reunited, adventure finds them once again ready and waiting to take on the world. This box set is so good, and I think that what I really like about this is it takes the next step of, this is 15 years later. This is 15 years after the Sarah Jane Adventures, and Sarah's gone, and Ronnie's reluctantly sort of stepping into the role, the shoes that she left. And I like that there's this element of the Sarah Jane Adventure stories in the way that the stories are told, or even sort of the monsters that they face. But there's almost a, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like a, 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 it's almost like a lifted maturity level of these, which I think works so well, especially since these characters are 15 years older. Angela Mahendra does such a good job. She, of course, is in each of these stories. Mina Anwar is only in the middle story, which is just Rani and Gita. And then, of course, Daniel Anthony, who played Clyde, he is in the bookends of the stories. So lots of twists and turns and surprises. Ultimately, everything kind of culminates and comes together. There is a through thread at the end, so make sure you listen to all of them. But overall, it's a great continuation of the Sarah Jane Adventures, and it's really enjoyable to be revisiting these characters once again. And there you go. That's my 2-minute, it's something new, 2-minute review.
Nice.
Yeah, I was able to listen to the first 2 episodes in the box set and wholeheartedly agree. I really, really liked the first episode, and even got a little verklempt a couple of times when they're talking about Sarah Jane, and because they're carrying on from the lockdown Farewell Sarah Jane Smith story that they had done. So they talk about the funeral and all that stuff. So I got a little emotional while listening to it, but the story itself was good, and I really enjoyed part 2. So I'm looking forward to listening to part 3.
There's some surprises in part 3 that I did not see coming, and almost glad they left it where they left it. So, and obviously there's already another one. I think I saw they've already got another one in the works. So there's more to come.
I can't wait to listen to it.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to Traveling the Vortex.
All right, well, let's talk about some news.
Yeah, it was announced this week that Murray Gold is returning to give us his score for the new series. Is anyone surprised?
No.
When I hadn't seen this until Sean sent us the link the other day when they announced it, and I was a little underwhelmed, not by the fact that I don't care that much about Murray Gold, because I do. I think he's done some terrific stuff, although I do think that the last few seasons of Doctor Who, I don't think the music was inventive, and it almost felt like he was dialing it in a little bit, because there are some early seasons that there's some really great themes in there, and they're just ones that you remember and go to all the time. And I can't remember any particular ones from the last 3 seasons that he did that just stand out in my head. So I think that was sort of waning, and that was part of the reason that he went away. But it wasn't even so much the fact that it wasn't even that. It was more of I almost felt like I expected this to be the news. I mean, they were bringing everybody back from the Russell T. Davies era. So I kind of expected that this would be one of those guys that would come along as well. One of the things I found interesting is when you first read this article, it really never says that he's coming back for the series proper. It says that he's coming back. He's coming back for the specials, or for the 60th anniversary. But I think if I remember right, later in the day, RTD tweeted that he would. Something to the effect of looking forward to him penning the first series of Schuette's Doctor as well. So it sounds like it is longer than just the specials.
I didn't realize that article had only specified that it was going to be the trilogy of specials. I just assumed when I saw the news that it was, he's just back.
Yeah.
And kind of just assumed he was going to be back. I also am a little torn on that because I agree with everything you said, Glenn, that obviously I Am the Doctor and some of those just sheer iconic soundtracks that go along. But he also has a wide range of just kind of their incidental music. And I seem to remember complaining quite a bit about the sound mix on some of those episodes where the music was too loud and
Well,
overshadowed.
that's not him.
That's not him.
You can't put that on him. That's on the production.
You could, depending on what it is. I mean, if you create a bombastic piece of music,
no
then
matter what it, no matter what it is, the mixer, the person that's mixing the episode is at fault, not the composer of the music. You shouldn't be restrained by those bombastic elements if they're not mixed correctly with the episode. So I will not allow you to disparage him for the poor mixing.
Unless the episode didn't call for a bombastic score at that particular time.
I disagree.
But at any rate,
it's still down to the mixer.
Yeah, it's still down to the mixer.
Okay, well, I retract the statement just to prevent an argument. But, on the one hand, yes, I'm very happy to have him back because he wrote such great stuff. And maybe now that he's been away for a bit and well rested, he can kind of come back and hit it with new vigor. At the same time, I don't know that I want him to stick around for a whole season. I don't know. Because that, in some ways, just feels like more of the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for RTD to promise us, it's going to be great. We've got all new stuff. We've got this, that, but then there's been a lot of more of the same. Oh, we're getting David Tennant back. Oh, Russell T's back. Oh, Murray Gold's back. Okay. I mean, it's kind of like we've already done that, but I'm willing to reserve judgment.
Yeah.
It's Doctor Who. It'll be good.
And really, for as much as, they made a big to-do about Segan Akinola coming back, I didn't really pay that after the announcement and then the opening theme. I didn't really pay that close of attention to the music the rest of Jodie Whittaker's run. So.
I was kind of the same way. I wasn't really kind of blown away by that music of her era.
Same.
But I also agree with what you said, Glenn, that post Clara's theme, I can't name a single piece of music that Murray Gold did after that.
On the other hand, we haven't had a chance to listen to much of Series 10 because they never released a soundtrack. Come on, BBC.
Well, there you go.
All right, well, let's move on to our next bit of news.
Titan Comics has announced that Missy will be involved in the 2-part Doomsday comic that they are doing as part of the Doomsday multi-platform story, which is launching on July 5th.
Did we not know that already?
Is it 2 parts?
It's only 2 parts according to this article.
Oh, I thought it was only one. I thought it was one
issue. 2-issue comic series.
Oh, okay. I just read Doomsday 1, so I didn't see a number 2. I guess I should have assumed from number 1 that there would probably be a number 2, but
I'm kind of surprised it's only a 2-issue run, actually.
Yeah.
I figured it'd be at least a 4-issue run. Maybe they're going to be supersized. I don't know. And this is our first Doomsday release, I believe. When it comes
is this July 5th? Is that going to be? Well, as far as we know, that's our first release.
Yeah, it's the first announced release.
Yeah, as I say, something could sneak in. I guess I meant chronologically. This is definitely our first announced release. But or officially announced release. But I suppose something could pop up that ends up before July 5th. But it looks like maybe July 5th will be the first kind of launching everything off with the Titan comic, which is kind of what they did with the Time Lord Victorious event as well. They started there with the comic.
Yeah.
I'm just excited. They don't say much about Doom herself, and it makes me a little worried that they have to use Missy to... Missy returns for Titan Comics in Doomsday, and I think, well, okay, maybe because we already got the big announcement that Doomsday is coming, maybe this is
they needed something else.
Yeah, they needed something new, and by the way, Missy's going to be in one of these as well, so I just hope it doesn't come down to we're stunt casting in order to make this thing more interesting, too.
Well, Titan did a good job with their Missy writing previously, so...
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm willing to let it slide because they did such a good job before.
Who did it say is writing this one? Oh, it's Jody Hauser.
Jody Hauser.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's in good hands for sure.
It just went up in my estimation.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to that, and I'll make sure that Sean gets that on our schedule. Oh, and one more piece of news. Doctor Who Worlds Apart, and that's the TCG game, the online one that we talked a little bit about last weekend. I was able to sit in on their Q&A this morning. They had a live streaming Q&A on YouTube this morning. And for the most part, was just here and there some questions. You were able to ask some mechanics of the game, some of the new cards that were coming out, how legacy cards worked, so on and so forth. But one of the things that I got out of this morning that they were able to announce was that there is a mobile version of the game coming, so you will not be tied to your computer in order to play this. If you have the app that presumably is coming soon, you'll be able to play your Star Wars TCG Worlds Apart cards on the mobile app as well. So pretty interesting news there, and sounds like that's coming along even more so.
Do you collect Doctor Who? Do you have Doctor Who items and you don't know you collect Doctor Who? For all things in the Doctor Who collecting world, tune in to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, a Direction Point Network podcast. I am Larry Van Rosbergen, your host, and I have been collecting Doctor Who for 40 years. With popular features like collection protection and the most outrageous offer, we have a lot of fun. Available anywhere you get your podcasts. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point Network podcast.
All right, well, should we move on to our review? Just a reminder, we are doing right now what is commonly called Season 6B of the Second Doctor era, and this is the era that takes place between his presumed regeneration at the end of the War Games, and all of these events are taking place between that and Spearhead in Space, where he actually regenerates into the Third Doctor. So this is our... well, let's see. Are we going to do... how do we do these? Because I had them on the schedule one way, and then I read them and decided that maybe they needed to go another way. But
I think they need to go the other way.
You think that they need to go the opposite of what I have here?
Yes.
Okay. So let's do Beyond War Games, The Final Beginning, and Wrath of the Ice Warriors first, and then we'll save the short story for later.
From Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who, The Second Doctor Adventures, Beyond War Games.
You have been content merely to observe the evil in the galaxy. I have been fighting against it.
Jenny, sorry, don't forget me.
I just got trapped here, like you.
Hello? Oh!
Who are you?
Oh! What a big gun you've got! I see. You mean I'll cease to exist?
As you are now.
Are you or are you not the doctor that I met during the Yeti business?
Is this your ship?
Well, no, I suppose not.
This planet was slap bang in the middle of our warp conduit.
Curious.
You're telling me.
I'm not James Bond, you know.
Where is your communication device?
Can you hear me all right?
Loud and clear, Doctor.
We complete the attack run. Bombard the surface.
Is this your new, companion?
I'm no one's companion, thank you very much.
The TARDIS is, temperamental like that. And at the moment, I'm, well, not exactly a free agent. Are you receiving, Great Dane 1?
Greyhound, Doctor.
Oh, I do beg your pardon.
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
Before Earth, before Unit, before Exile, the Second Doctor enters into a dangerous bargain in return for his freedom. Believing he has escaped exile and a change to his appearance, by the Time Lords, the Doctor finds himself lost in a snowy alien world. He is not alone. Prospectors Katrona and Silas are stranded in this nightmare planet, but without his TARDIS, the Doctor is powerless to help them. Seeking answers and freedom, the Doctor hopes and suspicions are aroused when a crashed TARDIS is discovered in the snow. Are Catrona and Silas as innocent as they seem? And who is Raven, the young woman who watches from afar?
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
Yep.
Who wants to go first?
Sean,
I will.
Go?
I'll start because I kind of feel like maybe you guys liked it more than I did. I did like it, but I don't know that I loved it. Anytime we get into it was all a mindscape kind of setting, I worry a little bit. And some of that was present here, even though it was later revealed that, we actually are on Skaro. But it's not quite the Skaro that we know and are familiar with. Although that is also kind of explained due to the events of the previous, Second Doctor adventure, which I don't think we've reviewed that one, have we?
Mm-hmm. We have.
We have. Okay.
Wait, you mean by previous? You mean
when I say previous,
Evil
I mean
of the Daleks?
Evil of the Daleks. Yeah.
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 Okay, that is that one.
Mm-hmm. It was the animated one that we recently did.
I guess I don't remember the Emperor blowing up or dying or doing whatever the Emperor did at the end.
That's the end. It
was
like the final shot, wasn't it?
That was kind of the big finale. That was a big climax of the whole thing.
I'm getting old, so a lot of this is starting to blur together.
I understand.
Okay, so I'll leave that alone then. I liked the side characters and was kind of upset at the casual offing that resulted there. That didn't sit well. It also kind of brought to mind how frequently the Second Doctor was put in the snow. Which
references to the coat.
Yeah, it seems like a lot. But overall, I think it was a good start to the box set. It just didn't quite nail everything as strongly as I hoped. Patrick Troughton has a certain rhythm and cadence and tonal quality to his voice when he's playing the Doctor. And Michael Troughton nails it most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
At least the warm, friendly Second Doctor. He's great at that. And I suspect maybe it's because that was the dad that he grew up with, when he was home. But the Second Doctor also has a low, concerned, kind of, there's a lot more gravitas to it. Part of his persona that I think Fraser Hines does a much better job of in the audios that we've heard him kind of doing the Doctor. And there were many instances where whatever line was delivered felt like maybe it should have been a little lower, a little more serious, a little more dramatic. And instead we kind of got the, oh yes, off we go. Kind of, I don't want to say happy-go-lucky, but it was a much lighter touch to it. So that pulled me in and out of the story a little bit. But beyond that, I think he nailed it, personality-wise.
I thought his anger at the Time Lords over Silas at the end, I thought that captured the Troughton-esque fairly well.
Yeah, and I think it's because the Second Doctor tends to, his voice goes up when he's angry because he starts talking faster, and so the pitch changes a little bit there. But
yeah,
I would agree with you, Sean. I think that I think the cadence and I think the cadence and the rhythm of his Second Doctor works really well. I would agree. Tonally, it's just slightly off most of the time, except for I think, and it may just be me getting used to the character, but I think by the second box set I didn't notice it anymore. Like almost he had gotten more comfortable in the role, and I think he did do some more of those lower, more concerning tones that he does. But one of the things that I found fascinating is I recently went back and listened to Fraser Hines do the Doctor in an audio that he was doing as him and Jamie, and his lower tones are spot on, but when he does the more excited, more up cadence Doctor, he doesn't quite nail it there. So it's almost like if you could take Michael Troughton and Fraser Hines and put them together, you'd have the exact sound of Patrick Troughton. Yeah. So,
somebody get on that. We want you to record the script, but only this half of it.
Right.
Only these sections.
Only these words. And so, and I know I know where you're coming from on this one, but I think that this one's the first story, and I think the reason why it's so much shorter than the second story is because I think Big Finish felt the need to really lean into the season 2B element, because while they have done stories that have been later placed rather by then our fans into season 6B, they initially were staying kind of clear of that era. And in fact, Helicon Prime, which we're going to be listening to later, makes a mention about Victoria that is the same place that she's been left when in the Two Doctors, when the second Doctor mentions to Jamie about dropping Victoria off somewhere for studying something. I don't remember what it was. So they were implying with those lines that this would be at the time that they were traveling with Victoria, and that they had just temporarily dropped her off. Although other things that surround the elements of those don't work with that era, so that's why they squarely come back into season 6B. But I think this was Big Finish's leaning into, and the reason why, and we're going to get to it here at the end, or towards the end of this episode, but I think the reason why I went back and forth on swapping this story with the other story that we're going to review, the short story that we're going to review, is I kind of feel like one works better than the other, but I think I kind of need to wait till we talk about the short story before we get to that. But I like the concept of Raven being this kind of mysterious agent that is sort of his warden, I suppose, would be the best example or best descriptor for her, watching over her. His handler, yeah. Watching over him and, guiding him on whatever missions he needs to be on. Although it's not made clear once we get to this next one why the Time Lord sent him, unless you guys picked up on something that I didn't. It wasn't really clear as to why he ended up in this next one, other than this is, as Nicholas Courtney says in the behind-the-scenes stuff, this was just the best way to do basically the Second Doctor Adventures. When they decided they wanted to do Second Doctor Adventures, this was a good place to put it because you kind of have a clean slate in a way. And it really, the next story really just feels like a Second Doctor story. It doesn't really feel like it necessary. And I think a lot of stories between now and when we're done with season 6B will be the same, but because they're obviously not going to be some sort of through arc. It's just a way to wedge in some more stories into the Doctor's timeline. But I know what you mean about kind of the dreamy dreamscape sort of element of things, and are we really here? Are we not? Is this real? Is this real? Is this not? I kind of understand what you meant. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good, and I think it does a nice job of framing where the Doctor is and what his predicament is now that he is in between exile and regeneration.
I liked all the season 6B stuff of this story, and I liked Silas, and I liked Katrona, and I liked all of, the mystery of him trying to figure out what's going on and how he escaped, so now he's got to get out of here, and all of that stuff I really liked. And then the Daleks become involved, and they don't do anything. There's no exploration of how are the Daleks coming back. They just are. And it feels like if you're going to do a sequel to Evil of the Daleks and explain and have the Daleks come back from that with the Emperor Dalek, tell me how the Daleks are coming back and have the Emperor Dalek come back through that. It just felt like it was a half attempt of, oh, okay, they're just back because of some weird timey-wimey stuff. Okay.
Yeah, they just are.
I wanted more from that aspect of the story. Everything else I thought was fantastic.
So I hope I'm right with this assumption, but I think that maybe that was purposefully done, because I wonder if maybe we're going to get
more. Based on the post-credit scene, it seems like it.
Well,
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that they feel like they're going to do more with the Emperor Dalek and the Daleks, and I think that the writers and Big Finish sort of feel like they need to maybe connect some dots between the Daleks that we get later in the series and these Daleks, because there's really kind of this weird gray area that there's been books, in fact, About Time tries to explain some of the inconsistencies and things that are happening, but I think maybe they're going to try to kind of connect the dots and fill in some of the inconsistencies in the Dalek stories from the first three Doctors eras, and sort of make them work maybe a little better without having to hand wave and do some timey-wimey. I hope that's where we're going with it. And like you said, from the cliffhanger of the one, I think that was sort of implied that we're going to involve the Daleks even more. Not to mention Nicholas Courtney's pretty much directing and overseeing this Second Doctor Adventures, so he's there. They might as well utilize him.
Yeah, when Nicholas Briggs is the producer and script editor.
Briggs, not Nicholas Courtney. Sorry, yeah. Nicholas Briggs. Nobody corrected me.
I knew what you meant.
I knew what you meant too, but now that you say it, well, I guess technically we do have
a director.
Sounds like Nicholas Courtney in that too. So
in the next one.
Well, should we move on to the next one?
Wrath of the Ice Warriors. Plunged into the middle of a desperate mission by his new masters, the Doctor is delighted to be reunited with Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart of Unit, near Cape Wrath, Scotland. The Doctor's arrival coincides with the sighting of black cylinders in the sky and an attack on a trawler by a creature of the sea. The Doctor quickly realizes he's dealing with ice warriors and investigates with the help of the Brigadier and local crofter, Sheena Flynn. With a space fleet lurking in the vicinity of Jupiter, the Doctor believes the Martians are planning a new invasion of Earth. But who is the true enemy?
Bum, bum, bum.
Yep. I really liked this one. I liked this one specifically because they've nailed a Second Doctor adventure, in my opinion. It's certainly not Base Under Siege, which would have made it really feel like a Second Doctor story. But it's
a Second Doctor story, but with modern sensibilities.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're absolutely right. I think the inclusion of the Brigadier is just wonderful. I think what is missing from the Second Doctor's era is more Brigadier, because I really enjoy the Second Doctor and Lethbridge Stewart together. I think that they work off of each other, I think, even better than the Third Doctor and the Brigadier do. And so it's always
they almost get along better.
Yeah, and it's almost it's enjoyable. Well, and I think it's because the Brigadier, I think, feels like he has more authority or control over this incarnation of the Doctor than he does the third incarnation of the Doctor. I think they go to loggerheads more than these two, but it's more because the Second Doctor sort of makes the Brigadier think he's in charge or think he's coming up with solutions and so I think that's what works so well in their dynamic. But I have to ask, when I'm sure nobody else thought this, but when at the beginning of this thing, when there's something coming up out of the sea and they're pulling it up with this trawler, my initial thought was, oh good, they've brought back the Merca. And then it occurred to me that no, that's the Silurians and the Sea Devils. That is not Ice Warriors. I've completely cross species here, but I got so excited that we were going to get into the Merca story, and it wasn't. But
I did not think that at all.
I did not think Merca. I did think Sea Devil. I don't know why. Just water. Okay, yeah. We're totally doing Sea Devil, and then I had to remind myself, no, it's an Ice Warrior story,
and we know that from the title. So
their names in the title. I'm pretty sure the Ice Warriors are going to be in this one.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if your story says of the Daleks, I'm going to go out on a limb. I bet the Daleks are in it.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think, especially building off what I remember my first Patrick Troughton experience being was the Five Doctors. that was the first time I kind of became aware that there was who before who being introduced to Tom Baker. And so seeing Patrick Troughton and how warm and friendly he is with the Brigadier, and they're just he's the Brig is so grateful to see him, and Troughton really leans into that, and they just have this absolute wonderful rapport. And then you go through the Patrick Troughton era, and you discover, nope, there was only two, and it just seems like, really, there had to have been more there. So I love the fact that this takes that leap and brings them back together again. And I absolutely agree that the second Doctor gets along with Lethbridge Stewart much better than the third Doctor. And I don't know if that's because of the time frame and that Lethbridge isn't quite as mired in the inner workings of creating Unit and being stuck with all the weirdness and then getting the Doctor there.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe I'd lost you there for a minute. There was a weird noise on my end. Or if it's because the third Doctor just kind of, he's still salty about being stranded, and he's trying to make the best of a bad situation. And Lethbridge Stewart is here. Oh, all right. But personality-wise, the second Doctor very much seems to genuinely like Lethbridge Stewart, whereas the third Doctor seems to just kind of tolerate him.
Yeah.
And they have that cantankerous relationship. So I love the fact that we got more, and I hope we get more adventures set, like this, where he gets to come back and do some more stuff with him. Well,
and for the most part, the second Doctor's still a free agent as far as the unit goes, but once he's stranded on Earth and he sort of becomes scientific advisor, he's on the payroll. So suddenly it's not a free agency anymore.
Well, and he's still bristling from, pushing back against authority after being forced to be stranded and have his appearance changed. So the third Doctor is, not being as friendly with the Brigadier makes sense because he doesn't want to be there. He's mad at authority for doing this to him, and so he's going to take it out on the authority around him, which is the Brigadier.
Yeah.
Right.
And the second Doctor doesn't have that, so we get a nice friendship between the two of them.
Did anybody suspect the gal, Sheena Flynn? Did anybody suspect that she was in cahoots with? I do like the fact that the one Ice Warrior you think is the bad guy is not the bad guy.
Yeah,
that was a bit of a turn, which I enjoyed. But for some reason, I had the Sheena Flynn, the way that she was acting around, wanting to be everywhere and placing herself in every situation. Something rubbed me the wrong way, so that I wasn't quite surprised when the Doctor reveals that that's the reason why she had gotten the coordinates and had them read and to write them down, or had him write them down so that she could take them to different coordinates. When he reveals that, I thought, aha, okay, well, I sort of saw that coming, but maybe that was just me. I don't know.
No, as with the Doctor, when he saw the pictures of the sketch drawings, I started suspecting her that something wasn't quite right, and that there was something going on with her. So I picked up on it too.
I did not. Maybe just because I really liked Sheena as a character. But I didn't, when the turn happened, I wasn't surprised. Maybe a little disappointed.
Yeah.
Oh, you are the bad guy. Okay. But she was kind of an unwitting participant in it, so well, in the end, all was forgiven.
I like where they went with her.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those characters that you can be sympathetic for, because she did think. Ultimately, she thought she was doing the right thing. She thought she was helping, she said she'd worked with refugees, back in her past, and this is what this felt like. And she completely believed that they were going to go to, some sort of authority and try to seek refuge, so.
I half believed Zalanda too, when she was going on and what she was trying to go after. I half believed her on her story until, obviously she did that turn too, which
she just kept getting meaner and meaner.
Once they got to the ship, it was like, okay, yep, that's how that's gonna go. All right. And in the back of my head the whole time I thought, at this point there is nobody on Mars. Why are they going to Mars?
Well,
and I was glad I was justified in what are you doing?
I'm impressed that you thought of that, because I didn't. I thought, okay, well, because recently we'd had the story in I guess it was the 12th Doctor's era, where the British were on Mars and they were digging into that.
They were Victorian.
Yeah, it was Victorian. But see, that's just it. Because that was,
you forgot that
that was more recent, I had forgot about when the placement of that was. And so when they got there and he was saying that, you've been in stasis for a long time, I thought, oh yeah, that's right. Obviously there would not be any Ice Warriors or Martians on the moon. And I'm so glad that they addressed the elephant in the room, that they're not Ice Warriors. I mean, they are from our perspective, they are from the Doctor's perspective. But when she kept saying, why are we called, why is he calling us Ice Warriors? But ultimately they're Martians, and that's what they are. So I like that they addressed that too. But anyway, yeah. So it didn't occur to me until that was said, and then I sort of had remembered. Okay, well, wait a minute. This story that I'm thinking of that was more recent actually was set further back in the past, so it doesn't, it does work. So I'm impressed that you thought of that ahead of time. I didn't think about it until it was revealed.
But we're supposed to think about that story, I think, because it is an Empress of Mars, and that was the Empress of Mars also. Yes. So I think they were trying to pull on that recollection and try to pull a fast one on us a little bit.
Did anybody realize it was Katie Manning until
did not.
until the behind the scenes?
No, until the
not
credits.
Even a little bit.
No,
yeah, I didn't either. Oh yeah, I guess it was the credits when they said Katie Manning. Yeah, I was shocked by that. I was like, "Oh wow, that did not sound like Katie Manning at all." Great job, good acting.
When you get into the behind the scenes stuff and you hear Katie Manning doing it,
then you hear
knowing that it's Katie Manning, then it's like, oh yeah, okay. But before that, not even a little bit.
Yeah, she impressed. I mean, she leans into it. It's a bit scenery chewing, but that's kind of what this needed.
That's a nice warrior is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is so in the character for this Empress too. So.
This really nailed the whole Second Doctor vibe of a Second Doctor adventure, to the point where, as much as I was enjoying it, I felt like it was about one episode too long. like it was winding
fine.
Things up nicely, and then all of a sudden, what do you mean we're going to Mars?
I didn't think it was too long, but I really did get duped thinking, okay, this is almost wrapping up. Oh wait, we're going to Mars?
So apparently that's my problem with the Second Doctor era, is as much as I enjoy them, I apparently tune out before I get to the end, which is why I don't remember the Emperor blowing up, Like, what do you mean we're going to Mars?
I do feel like the resolution was a bit easy of, Scar and the Brigadier coming to the rescue. That all felt, and it makes sense.
But they
it was
telegraphed it to us early on, because the brig makes mention of the Mars expedition that's getting ready to take off.
Which I assume he's talking about the ambassadors from space, right? Or what is that episode title? Wasn't that Mars based?
Not that they were going to Jupiter.
Was it Jupiter?
I thought that was Jupiter.
Ambassadors of Death. I don't know that they revealed where they came from. I think they were just.
I don't remember where the
astronauts.
I don't remember where.
That's what I thought of when he was referencing it. Anyways.
No, I thought they were out by Jupiter for some reason, but.
So
of course.
As much as I wanted to give that a fist bump, it's like, Brigadier to the rescue! Yay! Does anybody else now have a little bit of a timeline glitch in their head where Lethbridge Stewart has been to space? That seems weird.
He should swallow a lot of this stuff in the Third Doctor's era so much easier now.
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah. If this is set in established canon, as it were, now all of a sudden there's so much of Lethbridge Stewart that you're like, dude, you've been to Mars.
And dealt with Martians.
It was thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah, I would agree. And Coleslaw does a spot on Brigadier. I know we've had him in that special that we listened
Legacy
to.
of Time.
Yeah, Legacy of Time last year, 2 years ago. And so we heard him in that, but yeah, he's just there. I would swear that was Nicholas Courtney. I would, if you told me that was Nicholas Courtney, I would 100% believe you that was him.
And I do think Michael Troughton settles into the role a little bit more in this story.
Yeah. So we've got one more on the tray, and now I can quickly say why. I'm back and forth on this one because, and the more that we talked about this one, the more I think that this actually probably fits between these two. And the reason I say that is because I think that initially the story that we're referring to is in the Target Storybook, which is a collection of short stories featuring 14 doctors up to that point, because there's even a War Doctor story in there, I believe. And this is Terrance Dicks, I presume, was his last story he wrote before he died, because I think this book came out in 2019. And so, or maybe it was 2017. I can't remember. Anyway, it's been relatively recent. And he wrote this story. And of course, Terrance Dicks was the first one to acknowledge the official group or core of Doctor Who people, was the first one to acknowledge that Season 6B was a thing. So much so that the BBC dedicated a webpage to it, which you could still find to this day. But anyway, so he, I think, was attempting to even more clarify how this works. And I really like the idea of the Doctor being sent on these missions and essentially coming back and having completely forgot that he had made a deal and had been doing this before. And the revelation at the end of this where, he's made a deal, okay, but just one time. I'll do this one time for you. And of course, not realizing that he's already done this dozens of more times. I almost feel like this sort of fits in the middle here, and I can almost rectify that each time, although this isn't going to be the case, but I have I like each time he doesn't remember who Raven is. And I would love that if they could be able to do that with this second Doctor series, it would be very clever, but I don't see them doing this. But I could easily imagine that being the case where he's continually going back and making this deal to do one mission for him. What I don't like about it is I don't like dipping back in the well of the war chief again. And it almost seemed unnecessary to bring the warlord back. I thought it almost felt unnecessarily to do that. But as Jamie, listener to the show, Jamie reminded me, and I forgot to bring this up when we were talking about war games. The warlords actually make another appearance, and the war chief make another appearance in one of the Time Worm stories, the one that I think Revelation, Time Worm Revelation, where it's the one that Terrance Dicks wrote, and so they show back up in that, and their mechanicians cause the Nazis to actually invade Britain at the time. It's a really good book. Of the Time Worm series, that's definitely the best book of those. But anyway, then again, Terrance Dicks, so he has an affinity for the for the warlords. That part I think was completely unnecessary, but I think to frame the idea of how these missions work for Season 6B, I think that was a clever idea.
The clever idea of it is it can fit anywhere you want it to.
Yes.
Because he doesn't remember the previous missions or the future missions that he's going to do, you can slip the story anywhere you want. So that the fact that he made it so that they kept wiping his memory every time is really clever. So he could do a bunch of missions with Raven and then be sent off to this guy and have his memory wiped of Raven and those missions and go on who knows how many, and then go on to the next thing.
Well, I suppose that's true, because he doesn't necessarily have to have his memory wiped between each mission. He could have he goes off with Raven and has these set of adventures, and then anything that doesn't work with the second Doctor adventures that doesn't quite match up, you always have this story as your reference point as to why he doesn't remember, a story that maybe somebody had forgot to connect. So I kind of like that idea. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, he just had a memory wipe in between this one and that one to explain it away.
Yeah, that's good.
The ultimate canon fix.
Good thought, Keith.
Thank you, Terrance.
Yes.
Thank you, Uncle Terrance.
Uncle Terrance.
and it's.
I was going to say the warlord aspect of it. I kind of agree with you that it felt unnecessary. Of course, I didn't think the warlord lived after what they did, but obviously,
sorry. Go ahead.
Well, the warlord didn't. You revisit
or
that.
The war chief. This is the war chief.
Yeah, this is the warlord. The war chief is the one we presume got away. That Sean has always
thinks is the master.
Yeah, has always conceded that it was the master. The warlord was the guy with the round speckles that they did dematerialize, presumably. Although that's the catch of this story is that they only thought that they did. He was intercepted by his own people and rescued, and I think if I remember right, it's been a while since I've read the Time Worm book, but I think that was sort of the same premise there as well, is that he had been received right before he was, I guess, wiped from time or existence or whatever they do to him. So you're right. That is the events that happen in the war games. We see that on screen. He fades out of existence, and
so having the warlord come back for this story felt a little unnecessary when they could have had anybody else.
The war chief?
A threat to chief.
Bring the war chief back. I mean, that's the one you left ambiguous.
The threat to Karn could have easily been the war chief, because he might, especially if he thinks, the sacred flame is essential for regeneration, he could go and try to, take control of the sacred flame in order to rule Gallifrey. I mean, that would be
It's very much in the Master's MO too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different avenues he could have taken. Of course, it could have potentially needed to be a longer story at that point, but that's all right.
Yeah.
I enjoyed what he wrote and would have liked a little bit more, actually.
Yeah, I agree.
What's funny with this is reading it. The framing device is cool. The story within the framing device is a little weak for the aforementioned reasons. And I had kind of made up my mind after finishing it that, well, this isn't canon. This is not going to be part of my head canon. I don't need this story to work. But it's Terrance Dicks. And so automatically it gets a little more street cred than maybe it should. Because, it's Uncle Terrance. And if he says it, well, you got to kind of go with it. And so I like the way that you've retconned it for me, that, this is just the in-between zip and done.
Yeah.
Okay, I can live with that.
Good job, Keith.
Well, Terrance did it for us. I mean, it's all written down on the page.
Yeah, but
I just pointed it out.
Sean and I both read it, and so well done pointing it out for us, I suppose. All right. Well, anything else on this story? There's not much to say about it. I mean, it's just a quick 8-page story, and really the framing around it, I think, is what's clever about it. The warlord is incidental in my opinion, but I like the bookends of the story. I think is very clever.
It did make me wonder about the time frame of Karn. Like, was Morbius there somewhere?
I sort of wondered too, because I'm Morbius. This could, of course, he was living in, what was the guy that was
Solomon
him? Yeah, Solomon was. They were kind of living in Hermitage there for a while before the Doctor shows
maybe
up. So
Solomon hadn't shown up yet.
Yeah, that's possible too. Yeah.
Maybe Solomon was running an Airbnb before his thoughts turned to evil genetics and head transplants.
Maybe so. I'm surprised there's not more stories where they are threatening. We've had 2 in the last 2 months, but I'm surprised we haven't had more stories where they're threatening the Eternal Flame.
Yeah.
It is kind of ironic that we've now had 2 in as many months.
Man, if I had a nickel for every time somebody went after the sacred flame, I'd have a pair of nickels. But it's odd that it's happened twice.
Hi, I'm Rupert Booth.
I am known as Paul Ferry.
And my name is Barry Williams.
Together, we host Time Ram.
Time Ram's a cruel mistress.
It's a random number generator.
That also.
We roll a number from 1 to 13, and that's our doctor. Then 1 to 300 for the story, and then we ram them together.
Even if it doesn't make sense.
Cruel, I tell you.
Time Ram, putting the wrong doctors in the wrong stories, so you don't have to.
You're listening to Traveling the Vortex.
All right, Sean, Will, what do we got coming up on the schedule?
Well, coming up next on the program, we dive back into the Time War with Gallifrey, Time War 3, all 4 stories in that box set. And then we will go to our continuing 60th anniversary tie-ins with a story that doesn't really tie in, City of the Damned. It just happens to be the next comics set in the lead up to the Beep the Meep stuff. And a completely unrelated story that has nothing to do with that, but is part of the 60th simply because it's the new Doctor. The first 4 parts of Liberation of the Daleks.
And, of course, if you can follow us at our website, travelingthevortex.com, and if you get any value out of this podcast, why not consider putting some value back into it? You can do that by clicking on that Patreon link and consider supporting us there. We've got another quiz show up. This time, Sean takes the mic as your quiz host, your quiz master, and has 10 more questions for you. And, when you become a patron of the webcast, you unlock other materials like that. We've got some other audios up there, more coming down the pipeline. And if you can just give $1 a month, that's really all. That every little bit helps keep the lights on here at Traveling the Vortex. Also consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you subscribe to your podcast. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook and even on TikTok. So if you're a TikTok user, you can find us at Traveling the Vortex. This one's got spaces or underscores, I suppose. Traveling_the_vortex, I believe is how we're set up. So I'm sure you can just search it and find us there. Anyway, anything else we need to cover before we close this program? If not, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
Direction point! Direction point!
A Doctor Who podcast network.